Hello, this is Colin Liddell and this is the Shortpod, a brief and succinct podcast commenting on the events and issues of the day. And today it is the 30th of November 2020. Happy St. Andrew's Day. It has now been over 3 weeks since the US presidential election, and I've been avoiding commenting on this major political event. Prior to the election, like many other people, I discarded the opinion polls, and I think I was quite right to do so. And I also predicted that Trump would win, and it's pretty clear, I think, to many of us that Trump would have won if the amount of voter fraud had been kept at a normal level. But also, in addition to the outright illegal voter fraud, I think there was also a lot of semi-legal or just inside the boundaries of legality vote harvesting by the Democrats. But I feel that a lot of people are really getting too sucked into all this detail. My approach is to avoid that, not to look into all these news stories that are being generated. They are just so much news fluff that will be kicked up like a cloud of dust and then dissipate within days and be quickly forgotten. Finally, something will come out of this mess, either a reversal of the apparent election victory of Joe Biden, or else Joe Biden consolidating his position as acclaimed by the mainstream media and the establishment. But what's the story behind the story? Here, I think the main point to bear in mind is the way that America has been irrevocably divided and polarized. This is always an inherent flaw of any dualistic or bipolar political system. You have two parties competing for power, and over many years they gradually build up an antagonism that becomes more and more ingrained in their voter base, and then finally you've got a country that's almost on the verge of civil war. Now, in the old days, traditionally the two-party system wasn't supposed to work like this. What you did was you reached out to your base in the primaries, you signaled hard. For example, if you were Republican, you signaled hard on Republican issues, maybe anti-abortion, maybe low taxes or immigration. And then when you secured your base, you then fought a general election in which you went after the floating voters in the middle. The two parties would initially diverge to get in touch with their bases, and then they would converge in the election to sweep up the people in the middle and the floating voters. The result of this was that both parties were, on the political spectrum, quite closely located. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party were not really that different. They might have had various small issues that they disagreed on, but on the fundamental questions, they would serve the same donor base and the same floating voter base in the middle. In more recent elections, this pattern seems to have broken down. Possibly starting with Bill Clinton, we saw the increasing alienation of conservatives from the Democrats. Before that, Republicans and Democrats could have enough sympathy with each other to accept each other's victorious presidential candidates. But from Bill Clinton onwards, you saw a marked drop in readiness to accept the candidate of the other side as president. George W. Bush kind of reinforced that trend, which was partly masked by the apparent attack on America on September the 11th, 2001. After George W. Bush's tenure as president, we had Obama. Again, this was something that people on the right side of American politics found very, very hard to accept, and a lot of people on the white side of politics also found that very, very hard to accept, because this was a fundamental challenge to the basic identity of America as this de facto or implicit white country. Donald Trump was more of the same. This was somebody that people on the left found incredibly impossible to accept. So what we're seeing in America is this kind of seesawing motion. The country staggers to one side, then it staggers to the other side, becoming increasingly off balance in the process. And this is really highlighting either the fundamental flaws in a two-party political system, and there's no reason to think this won't continue to happen, or else it's something even more sinister. America has been manipulated and divided possibly by external elements. There's been a lot of talk about that, most of it very, very uninformed. But there's also no reason why there would be clear evidence of this, because if there were clear evidence of such external manipulation of American society and the American political process, then that would actually end the manipulation. So, in order for such manipulation to be effective, it would, by definition, have to be very, very difficult to detect. Now, what is the means by which this destabilization and this over-polarization of America is taking place? I would say that the most obvious method that is being employed to achieve this would be the internet and particularly social media. This might sound a little bit counterintuitive because in America the media and the social media is now increasingly united in its attitude and outlook and in its support for the Democratic Party. But rather than signifying unity, that actually symbolizes division, because if the commanding heights of media and social media are leaning one way, that's simply going to have the effect of pushing a lot of people who don't trust the system in the other direction. And so what we're seeing is this constant process of every single issue being deeply polarizing and people being able to kind of jump into the debate, and even when they're not really able to express themselves with words, they can easily express themselves by retweeting memes. And so this is where we start to see the importance of memes. Memes give people the ability to argue even when they're not capable of arguing. And from my perspective here in Japan, looking at America as a kind of distant outsider, it seems that their culture has become saturated with memes. And this is something I can't possibly, prove or back up in a conventional way, but I definitely get the impression that America is being flooded with divisive memes on every single topic that comes up for debate or which enters into the national political bloodstream. And furthermore, it just seems so neat because, America is this global superpower. It's practically hegemonic in the world in terms of, political and military and financial influence. It has a perfect geopolitical, geographical situation, entirely secure between two oceans, able to reach overseas and interfere in any part of the world it chooses to. But it has an Achilles heel, and its Achilles heel is its two-party system. And the events of recent years, stretching back a couple of decades perhaps, is that this characteristic, this two-party characteristic, is being used to undermine and destabilize it. How exactly and by whom remain open questions, but if Achilles is dying, you have to look at his heels. Over and out.